Good morning. Welcome to the second of three free Zoom workshops for PGA pros only. We really enjoyed our time together on Monday with Mr. Groves. We look forward to helping you learn a lot today about how to play better golf in many ways with Sam Arnold, our special guest. Dedicated to the ideal that the name professional golfer shall be a synonym and pledge of honor, service, and fair dealing. His professional integrity, loyalty to the game of golf, and sense of great responsibility to his employer, employees, vendors, clients, and fellow golf professionals transcends thought of material gain in the motives of the true professional golfer. Many of you will be glad to know that we've been allowed to get MSR points for our hours together this week. So if you're interested in those MSR points, let me know and I'll be able to send in the paperwork for you. Chad Gilligan in our section was very nice to look into that for us, and he's secured that uh, benefit for us. So that was kind of neat. And it's a little bit, I like to say that Monday was about the opportunity we have as golf professionals to learn why we can play and want to play more golf. Today will be about the possibility of transformation, about what we can do to play better golf. And then Friday will be with Dan, we'll be talking about kind of the how of how we can take ownership of this transformation that Sam and I will speak about today so much. So, Sam, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself because, again, I can't do it as well as you can, I think.
Well, thanks, Joel. I'm very honored to get the invite to be a part of this podcast. It was great listening to Grover yesterday, and you know, you talk to Grover, you can sit there all day talking golf, and he's got some great stories, and um, it was nice listening and hearing you guys talk yesterday. So, um, yeah, so I've got my PJ membership in 1998. And I started out down at Little Miami Golf Center. Dennis Wells gave me an opportunity there, and I've always considered Dennis Wells a mentor of mine. And I growing up, I played all the sports. Um, I really fell in love with golf, and uh, in high school, I had a really um, good, motivating coach who got all of his players excited to practice. And he taught us how to practice. And, uh, we would just be at the golf course all day. And I had an older brother that played, and his senior year at Milford, his team went to state and they came in fifth place. And I always poked at him. I said, we're going to win the state championship. We're going after it, and my goal was to first make varsity as a freshman, and I did that and qualified for the state championship my freshman year. And then my sophomore and junior year, I didn't play well and I didn't advance on. So my senior year, we really focused on just practicing and being a team. And that's odd because golf is an individual sport. So um, we played a ton in the summertime. And then fast forward, we make it to the state championship and we win the state championship.
Sweet.
Yeah, it still gives me chills today, thinking about that. And our team is still close. We get together and it's just a really neat uh thing that we've experienced. And unfortunately our coach passed away, but um he left us with a ton of memories and like I said, he was a great motivator to get us out there and practice. So then I took that confidence to go play in college, and that's the one thing that Grover and I have in common. He went to Ohio State and I went to Wright State. So we just have state as our commonality there. But so I went to Wright State, was fortunate enough to play golf with Frank Licklider. He was a senior and I was a freshman, and I learned a ton playing with Frankie. And um, and then I decided to turn pro. I went down south, played a little bit, did things wrong, stayed up late, drank too much, woke up foggy with all the poison you put in your body, and I just didn't perform well. So I came back home, decided to get in the business, and I'll never forget it. I thought again, going back to practicing, I thought hitting a bucket of balls and chipping a putting a little bit would be competitive to play in our Monday tournaments. And Dennis Wells kind of took me under his wing, and I realized very quickly that to compete against PGA golf professionals, you have to be on top of your game. That's all about preparation. And so then I left Little Miami. I got promoted over to the Vineyard as the first assistant. And that's where I met Mike Thomas, who Mike was actually, he started out on the maintenance department, got into the golf business and turned pro. And I thought Frank Licklider was dedicated to the game of golf, playing wise and practicing until I met Mike Thomas. Mike just absolutely loves the game of golf. He'll play with anybody. He just wants to play golf. And there was a time where we got no routine where we got here at the Vineyard first out, 6:15, 6:30, would zip around and play. We'd play almost every morning or as much as we could. Obviously not on the weekends. We wouldn't do that, but um, so we would play, zip around, practice a little bit, and then I'd go home, have lunch with my kids and my wife, and I'm back at the golf course closing down the course, and I think playing all that time helped me with tournament golf. But I will share this story with you. I'll never forget that when I was uh, playing a tournament, Ivy Hills Country Club, we had a chapters event, and there were some other. This was early, like maybe 98, 99, I think. Could have been early 2000s, but there was a group of pros over in the corner talking on a practice screen about the Ohio Cup. And they were saying, man, what a great event and all this. And I'm like, and this thought popped in my head. Man, I wonder if I'll ever be good enough to play on the Ohio Cup. I wonder if I'll ever be able to qualify for the Ohio Cup. Because I was struggling at that time. I mean, I'm shooting 76, 75. I didn't really have the confidence, and that's how the mind will play tricks on you. And so the only thing I knew how to do is just to get back at it. And like Hogan said, find it in the dirt, and practice and sacrifice. And I made a lot of sacrifices, and put a lot of time into my game to practice. And lo and behold, it paid off because something clicked and I had a really good run. I qualified for national championships. My first national championship, I make it in the top 20. Um, I remember I remember going in a playoff at uh, in New York, in Syracuse, New York, at Adunio, and I don't remember how many people were in the playoff, but we go to this par five, we tee off, and I end up making a par there, and then I hit it in the water the next hole, and I get beat. I'm the first alternate, and I remember walking in from that playoff just devastated, going, man, I had an opportunity to qualify for the PGA Championship, and I blew it. And so we get back into the clubhouse. My caddy and I, we load up. We go to the airport, and we're walking through the airport, and
Robert, was it
what's that?
Robert? Robert
No,
Baumkamp?
it was actually Sean Dugan.
Okay.
But um, No, it was Robert. Sorry. Dugan was, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So we're walking through the airport and we look over and uh in the bar grill area, there's the TV and we look up and there's the playoff. It's being shown on the Golf Channel. So we walk in there and I'm standing there watching the playoff and down on the other side of the bar, I hear these guys go, "Oh, I'm going to take the guy in the blue shirt. I'm going to take," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." If they turn this way, I'm right here, right? Like, so I had to, I was embarrassed. Like, I'm the one who lost the playoff. I'm out of here. So I left. But, um, so, so fast forward, I fly home and it was about maybe, I don't know, a couple days go by and I get a phone call from, uh, uh, from the guy that's in charge of the PGA tournaments. He was
Haig,
running,
Kerry Haig.
Haig. Yeah, Kerry Haig. He had that accent. He's like, "Hey, Sam, Kerry Haig from the PGA. I was wondering if you'd like to play in the PGA Championship." I'm like, "What? This has got to be a prank, you know?" And he said, "One of the players, one of the club pros backed out and you're in." And I couldn't believe it. So I said, "Yeah, let's go. It's at Medina." We drove up there and um, had a bunch of practice rounds and I felt comfortable. I'm playing in playing in the practice rounds. I'm there from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m., just loving life, having a great time. And it was kind of wild because when I walked up on the first tee, I got paired up with Billy Mayfair and Simon Kahn. And it was my turn to hit. You know how everybody has rituals, right? Like they have you know, uh, favorite ball mark or favorite repair tool. Well, I had the zero friction tees that I used, the three-prong tee. And I'll never forget this, where I was teeing it up and my hand was shaking so much. I'm like, why in the world would I use a three-prong tee for the first tee shot? I couldn't get the ball on the tee. It was crazy. It was the weirdest feeling. So, um, I've been very blessed and fortunate to play in some big tournaments but it's just interesting where I'm sitting there thinking, man, am I good enough to make the Ohio Cup team? To where if you put your time into it and you dedicate your time and work at it, good things happen. And if you surround yourself with good people, good mentors, people that have been around, it's going to happen for you. Your game will improve. You know, anything from finding a good instructor to putting yourself out there, be vulnerable, like put yourself out there and go up to people and ask them questions and say, "Hey, how do you improve?" Or what's your secrets? Like I ask Bob Sowards a lot. I mean, we are so blessed to have a player like Bob in our section, and I try to pick his brain as much as I can and try to get nuggets, and um you know, so I went from being an assistant to the head golf professional to now the park district made all the head golf professionals general managers. In the past 6 years, I've been a general manager, and even though that my positions have changed, I still love to practice. I still love to find time and play, and because that's what you have to do. I mean, if you want to be competitive and play to the next level or try to improve, you just have to spend some time at it. And uh, like when I just got back from playing down in Florida, Joel, and reconnecting with you and talking um, about course management and everything that you have through your career, it's very impressive. I mean, it's great. So I'm excited to get into that with what you have to share and it's a game changer with watching your what you do with your stats and how you with course management and everything. I mean, I'm excited. I can't wait to go out and play and use some of the stuff that you shared with me.
Have you gotten to play it all in your simulator last couple weeks?
Yeah, a little bit, but not much. Our I don't have the best system here, but it's good enough to where you can see shots. Now, I will share this with you that a lot of my students, I have them playing 3 holes or 6 holes or however, and it's wild going from driver to iron to chipping, and we're not putting on the simulator, but
Right.
just looking at that, and I don't want to dive into all the stuff that you've told me the past few days, but the bozo tee shots and pitching and stuff like that. I'll let you kind of talk about that here later, but um, but it's very helpful. It's helpful for me where I'm in the process of getting certified and teaching and coaching through the PGA. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but you have to get 250 education points, and anything and everything helps. And
Yeah.
just sitting here talking to you, it's like, man, I'm sitting here giving a lesson to one of my students, and Joel Suggs pops in my mind. It's just little nuggets here and here that I'm giving back to my player. And those players, those students are walking away thinking I'm the best teacher ever, and I'm like, I'm getting it from Joel.
Okay.
But it's you have a lot of information. I love talking to you about your anything from your experience with your aunt and how your game has evolved, and watching you sent sharing those videos with me about how, hey man, I dropped 3 balls on the green and I just played 9 holes, on how you keep your, and I'm like, wow, I never really even thought about that concept of course management, stats, and everything.
Okay. Well, man, that's beautiful, Sam, to understand where you're coming from, man. What 3 years have you won the section? Do you remember?
Well, yeah, hold on, I got it somewhere. 2000 and I think 7, 2012, and then I think the most recent one was like 23 maybe,
So
or 20.
16 years apart,
Yeah, it was a while.
the
Yeah.
first to the last. That's beautiful. And
Yeah,
then how
thank
many years did you try to win
for 28 years maybe.
it?
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, Sam and I have been acquaintances for about 25 years since we're both Park District kind of guys. And Sam has been kind to our son, is now 29 years old, 28 years old. And so anybody you know that's kind to your children, you really appreciate. And all you guys, many of whom are on the call and all around the greater Cincinnati area and Georgia area have been kind to our children for many years. So Sam gets a lot of my respect. And as we've talked about this, I'm going to take you through some slides here. Um, uh, and I've wanted Sam to answer some questions that I've given him, and then he sent me back some topics. I said, Sam, I love your topics. I want to hear what you want to say about these topics you wanted to bring up. And then Sam has come back to me and said, well, Joel, I want to hear you talk about the things you wanted to talk about. So, and then we both said, man, it was so great to hear the voice of a guy like John Marshy on Monday. Sam, you want to explain why you enjoyed that so much?
Well, there was a time where I had 15, 20 years being part of committees and on the board, and John, I just remember John Marshy stepping up. He was our president of our section, and just hearing his voice brought back so many memories. I thought I was in the boardroom listening to him, But it's just great, and that's what I think the game of golf does with the networking and how many great people you meet. And that's why it was refreshing to hear the topic of Grover and play more golf, and just the topics that you guys were talking about, just going back, and you don't have to go out and shoot 65. Just go out there, and if you hit that one good drive, it's like, wow, these members love it, or the guys in your group just think you're one of the better players because you have that PGA Pro title.
Indeed.
So,
And it was earned. We had to earn it at one point. We had to shoot low to mid 70s to get in. So absolutely. So Sam, I'm glad you appreciate that for guys like me who aren't as great a player as you, to still love golf and have it help our careers in so many ways. Now, Sam, so this was, we already covered this a little bit. Is there anything else you want to tell us about that topic right there?
Well, there's so many cool memories. I mean, I
Yeah.
could go on forever, but um, one that sticks out is when I played the PGA Championship at Hazeltine. I got paired up with Stuart Sink and Zach Johnson in a practice round, and that's when Butch Harmon was helping out with Stuart Sink, and he was walking along with us in the group, and um, had a great time. I mean, it was absolutely the best. And we get done, and the PGA they put on a phenomenal show with how they run their championships. I mean, it's from start to finish, from taking care of the kids with daycare to taking care of the spouses, and it's just great. It's a really cool experience. So um, when we finished our round, we go in and my caddy and my instructor at the time, we sat down and had a big old meal, and food's all over our plates, and these guys are chowing down, and I'm sitting there just staring at my food. And they look at me and they go, "What's the matter with you?" I say, "Guys, did you just not witness that?" And they were like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Stuart Sink and Zach Johnson, they were out driving me by 30, 40 yards. There's thousands of people around. They want their autographs. Like, who am I? Like, what? This is crazy." And then my instructor at the time, Chris Myers, he goes, "You do realize that Stuart Sink just won the British Open and Zach Johnson just won the Masters. They're the number 7 and 11 player in the world. Like, why are you beating yourself up?" And I think that's what we do as players. It's like we always compare, and it's like, man, so fast forward, uh, last April, I went down and I've been trying to do these Champion Tour qualifiers, and they're a blast, they're fun, but it's a lot harder than what I anticipated. You show up on a Thursday or Friday, and there's about 100 guys, and they take the top five. So I made it through the Thursday, went to a playoff, get through. Thankfully, my sister lives in Atlanta, so I stayed with her and her family, and then tee it up Monday. I go out and just play lights out. And Robert was on the bag, and he lives in Atlanta. He actually caddies at Augusta, and we can I can tell you stories about that. But um, so Robert came over and he's caddying for me. He helps me out, and I get through the Monday qualifier, and we go out and play in the Mitsubishi there at TPC at Sugarloaf, and I go out in the first round. I'm 5 under through 15. I'm just cruising. Like it's incredible. And I think I just felt so much more comfortable because of experience and being there. Like I talked about the first tee with that. I did not use that three-pronged tee, so I got rid of that idea. But when I that first tee shot at Medina, I said a little prayer and I'm like, please, Lord, just let me get this airborne. And I crushed it. It was probably one of the best drives I've ever hit in my life. I just bombed it right down the middle. And I get out there and I'm getting the yardage at Medina. I'm getting the yardage, and my heart still was exploding out of my chest like I was on the first tee. Where usually in our section events or pro-ams, it's like, yeah, you get excited, you get pumped up, but then when you tee off and you get out there, it's like, where you settle down. Well, at Medina, I never settled down. I doubled the first hole. I think I parred the second hole, but I'm just like, man, this is a different feeling, right? It's a different experience. So we go to Sugarloaf, and I'm 5 under through 15. I'm feeling comfortable. I'm like, yeah, this is it, man. This is great. And we get to my 16th hole, and it's just a hybrid. And I swung, I hit it off the heel, and the wind caught it, and I went, "Oh my God, it's going towards the out of bounds." It takes a bounce, and I'm praying that it stops, and a foot out of bounds. I make double. I recover, I shoot 3 under. I do my normal routine. I go over, and I'm on the practice range, and just kind of practice. And a really good buddy of mine that went down to watch me play, he comes over And he goes, "Hey, the pairings are out. Did you see the pairings for the second round?" I went, "No, I haven't checked yet." He goes, "You're playing with Angel Cabrera and Stuart Sink." And I went, "Oh man, this is great. This is really cool." And he goes, "You heard about the story about Angel." And I said, "What? No, I don't know. He goes, "Well, Angel, he's known to give his playing opponents a note on the first tee. And on that note, it says, 'Do not talk to me.'" And I was like, "Wow, okay, great. This can be interesting." And so we go to the first tee the next day, and I'm kind of, I'm still feeling comfortable. I'm like, "Man, this is great. Let's go." And the good thing is Robert Baumkamp caddied for Stuart Sink when Stuart took his son to Augusta.
Ah,
And Stewart remembered Robert. And if you know Robert, he's a good dude.
very
He's
friendly.
very outgoing, and he's great. So that kind
But
of
if you
broke the
cross him,
ice.
he's an ex-Marine.
Yes. Well, yeah. Once a Marine, always a Marine. But so so that kind of broke the ice. But right before uh Angel walks over, I just went over to him. I said, "Hey, Angel, how you doing?" And I shook his hand. And there was no note. His caddy was the best. And after I got done, I went to my buddy and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Yeah, I was just kidding. I was just trying to get you focused." Like,
Uh,
you're an idiot, man. And it was a great experience. It was, those guys were awesome. And that's what I noticed too down at the PGA Century. I've been for 25 years in the PGA, so you get to play in the Century Championship and the senior stroke play. And it's like the seniors are so much more laid back, and I think it's just maybe through experience. And they when I was out there playing in that tournament at TPC Sugarloaf, I mean they were very nice. I mean you get some of the guys that are just playing into they're focusing on their own game and they're trying to make a check and all that, but majority of them are really really good guys, and it's fun. So the other key was, I said that at Hazeltine when I played with Stuart Sink, and he's bombing it. Like, he was hitting it 50, 60 yards past me. It was so impressive. And then when we played, I was out driving those guys. It was awesome. It
wow.
gave me so much confidence. I was like, wow, this is incredible
Wow.
that I'm hitting it further than Stewart and I'm hitting it further than and Angel, and it just gave me confidence. And
And that's
uh
15 years removed from Medina or 20?
2009. So yeah,
15.
16 years.
Yeah. Wow, Sam.
So yeah, it was crazy. And I know that Stewart had probably lost some yardage there, but it was just neat. It was kind of neat. Like, you go back to where you're sitting there at the lunch table going, "Man, I suck. I can't compete against these guys. They're out driving me." Fast forward. So in all fairness, I worked on speed. I did the speed
Yeah.
sticks. I
Yeah.
did the whole sit, and so it pays off. It it
I
it
didn't think you
pays
got it
off.
just by laying at home on the sofa.
Right. Or just hitting a bucket of balls every other day, or
Yeah.
hitting a couple chips here and there. Like, you got to put some work into it. But
Well,
what I share with my students, and I've learned this through time, little nuggets here and there, the five aspects of golf, where it's the full swing, short game, course management, mental game, and then the putting, and so, like, I worked on speed, I worked on distance, I got distance back, and then I sit there and I go play in a tournament and I struggle. And then I talk to Joel, and Joel goes, "Look at your stats. How many bozo tee shots did you have?" And I went, "Oh my gosh." So now I'm so wrapped up in speed and distance, where in reality, it's like, man, you need a combination of the both, right?
of course. Right.
You need distance to, it's helpful to have a shorter club end, but if you're hitting from the trees, it's not good.
Not good. Yep.
So
Well, man, that's beautiful, Sam. So, man, again, I'm sure everybody on the call feels the same way I do, man. We'd love to keep hearing you do this. But because there's so many different people on the call, I was gratified that there were five past presidents of PGA sections on the call on Monday with Steve Groves, and there were also four college students from the Ohio State University PGM program.
That's
So
great.
I was very gratified that this topic has a wide interest from everybody on the whole gamut, the whole continuum of PGA golf professionals. So because of that, we're going to ask some of these questions. And again, today, guys, Sam has agreed to stay to 11 a.m. Eastern time. I'm staying till 11 a.m. Eastern time. You know what they tell me in the office, people that work in cubicles, they call it a bio break nowadays. Sam and I both, right before 8 a.m., we each took a bio break. So we are staying till 11 a.m. You can continue to pick Sam's brain here as we go today.
Well,
Um,
Joel, not to interrupt you, I was hoping that you'd dunk it again because
well, doggone it.
I know your vertical leap has got to be higher than Phil Mickelson.
Well, you know, I'm never one to turn down a request to show off.
Yeah, that's impressive.
I
What's that?
think I made that one, didn't I?
Yeah, yeah, you did. Yep.
That damn, Sam, just like Steve, I can't get anything by you. That was going to be my first question, real. Sam, do you know how to dunk a basketball?
You know what's funny about what I mentioned about the high school team.
Yeah.
So we had seniors against the faculty, and myself was a senior, another player on the golf team. We played in this game, and the only two seniors that could dunk the ball were from the golf team. And they got, yeah, Brad Hunkler and myself, we were dunking. It was crazy. I don't know what
So
got
you
into us. We
so
were
you
throwing,
can dunk a basketball.
yep. I wish we had iPhones back then to video it, but it was crazy. And the guys, our buddies that were on the basketball team were so upset at us for not coming out and playing basketball or playing on the team. It was great.
That's cool, baby. All
Yeah.
right, so that was my first question. Can you dunk a basketball? And I want it recorded for all of PGA history that the honest to God answer from Sam Arnold to that first question is YES.
Well, I don't know if I could dunk it today. I haven't
Well, yeah.
tried, but if I lower that rim down, I think I can. Sure.
So here we go. So I'm gonna go along, and so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna continue to pick Sam's brain here as much as possible. Now, another thing Sam and I said as we prepared for this is we want everybody. He says, "Man, there were so many cool guys on this call the other day, Joel. I wish we could have heard from them." And I'm like, "Yeah, me too. I wish we could have heard from them too." So at any time today, type in your question to the Q&A or the chat, and it's scheduled that at 9 o'clock we'll start taking those. But what we're going to do, because Sam really wants me to cover some of the things that I've put in this slideshow, in addition to picking Sam's brain for another 10, 15, 20 minutes, I'm going to go through the things that Sam's excited for me to share with y'all about playing better golf. And if we go past 9 o'clock a little bit with Sam and me talking until 9:05 or 9:10, please forgive us, but we really think you're going to enjoy the things I'm going to cover. And then at 9:05 or 9:10 probably, we're going to go through some of the questions y'all have emailed in because many of them had to do with playing better, more so than playing more or playing fun. So we're going to go through those for a few minutes. And then again, we're going to stay to 11 o'clock for sure to help you understand Sam's mindset and some of the things that I will also be showing you here. So Sam, it was great to hear those stories from playing in some of those real big tournaments. Um, this was another question you thought would be good to cover there, Sam. You want to cover that for a few moments?
Well, it kind of goes back to where the topic of playing with Stewart and Zach being you compare your games to others, and the thing about life is you have to put yourself out there and get uncomfortable. I think the more uncomfortable that you get and the things you battle through, that's how you progress. That's how you grow. And I'm pretty addicted now to podcasts. Like I'm listening to Joel, you and I have talked about our religion and our faith. I have faith-based podcasts, and I also have um, podcasts that will help me improve my daily lives, and confidence and being just a overall better person, better father, better husband, and stuff like that. So I'm always trying to improve, but I kind of typed up this question because I'm looking for nuggets. Like if anybody else is out there, it's like, why are you not playing in our tournaments? Or why are you not playing with your members? What are you afraid of? What is it? Like, let's peel back the layers of the onion and get to the core and figure out why are our PGA golf pros not playing more? And I know I'm getting off on tangents here, but my wife and I were talking the other day, and she kind of tongue in cheek said, the PGA golf pros, aren't they a dying breed? I said, what do you mean? So that's interesting. Why would you say, well, aren't they kind of like tennis pros? Like they're just kind of, do you see many tennis pros at facilities? I'm like, well, I've never really even thought about that. Like, our average age in our section is what, 48 years old, PGA members. So it's really exciting to hear that the PGM students are on here and listening and what do we need to do? I'm 54 years old. What do we need to do to get this younger generation to get in our business? And that could be a different topic, like the work-life
Indeed.
balance. I think it is, um, but as far as tournament play, it's interesting. Like I heard this saying that you're only as good as your last round, and it's like, what? Whoever thought of that? Joel, and you gave me a nugget. I think it was about par. You said par is the worst thing for golf. You stand up on a hole, it says 485, but the scorecard says par five, or it says par four. It's just a number. You got to play the hole. Play the hole and give take what it gives you.
Yep. I'll
But
tell you what, Sam, I shudder. One of the reasons I'm so enthused about this topic is because uh, I'm afraid I've heard some people say that the PGA of America is a dying organization, and it literally we're dying, and that we're getting older. Steve Groves and I would consider you a flat belly, and I'm thinking, good golly, Sam's playing in senior events. I guess that means I'm
yeah,
still 10 years older than him. So, and now we are going to have some other gentlemen on some future PGA workshops here that are younger men who've expressed a huge interest in us getting their perspective on things too. But I'm going to venture an opinion here. I'm going to say, I really don't know if work-life balance is helping younger guys get into it. Maybe it's almost, yeah, play more, get a little more crazy with your schedule, love the game of golf more. And that's one of the reasons I'm so interested in this topic of play more and better. But so it's a good question your wife has asked. I think it came from somewhere, what your wife
yeah.
asked. And then how about this one, Sam? You thought you'd like to talk about this topic for a few moments.
Well, this one where the PGA pros look down, that was kind of earlier in my career where I was young, eager, assistant, loved playing. I was around people like Mike Thomas who just absolutely loves playing golf, and I had some success. I won some tournaments, and there were some pros early on that kind of said comments like, "Well, that's all you do. You don't work." And I'm like, "Man, they have no clue. They don't know like the Park District where if you give a golf lesson back then, it's on your own time. I'm
Right.
full time. I have to get 40 hours. Like spend 40 hours in the shop. I'm not talking like going out and playing nine with the members or going out and giving lessons. Like it's 40 hours supervising your facility. And I remember, I'll never forget this too, where the great Bob Howard, when I great now, here's the positive of the pros. Bob Howard comes back and he goes, "Hey Sam, what time are you getting up in the morning?" I said, "Well, I'm getting up at 5:30." He goes, "I'm gonna get up at 5." I go, "What?" He goes, "You're winning. I gotta do something different." I'm like, wow, that was awesome. I said, Bob, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, what's that saying? Iron sharpens iron, and that's why it's great to have a Bob Sowards and now Ben Kern, Jared Jones. Like these guys are great players. When I go down and play in these national tournaments, those names come up and they're like Southern Ohio. Geez, you guys got some great players. I'm like, yeah, we do. You got to stay on top of your game if you want to play at that level. And
Yep.
everybody has different levels. I mean, it could be your goal could be to go out and play with your members and just get them fired up and have them, you guys talked about when they're in the grill room or whatnot, and they're going, oh man, golf pro A, he hit this shot or he birdied that hole or this. I mean, that's all that matters, just getting out there and having fun. And that's the thing that's so neat about playing with guys that aren't as talented as golf pros is that make them feel comfortable. Get them out on the golf course. Like that's what I'm
Yeah,
doing more with my students is let's go play 3 holes. And they love it. I mean,
indeed.
they'd
Yep.
much rather go out and play golf than sit there and hit a large bucket of balls on the range. And all of a sudden you're like, well, your hour's up. Thanks for coming out. And they're sweating. All it was good exercise for them. Yeah, maybe they worked on some drills and fundamentals, but man, that comment of, and I think it's later on in your slides here of why can't we take it from the range to the course, or why is it so challenging to take a change or a fundamental that we see? I mean, the technology nowadays is phenomenal, and we see it, the feels versus reels, and it's like, man, and that's above my pay grade with the neuropaths and all that of why can we not take this change? We're doing it here. We see it on the video you're doing, but then you go out on the golf course and all of a sudden you run back to that comfort zone of bad habits and you can't produce that same move.
Yep. That's a great topic. We have a couple questions coming in now, Sam, so this will be fun to hear from some of the other folks. But
Yeah,
I love this topic that you're bringing up here. Sam, I got to admit, 12,192.
did I
What is
stump you?
that number? Can I tell you what that number is? I already
Yeah,
know the answer.
you do?
Yeah, I do. I do, Sam. The 12,192, I think, is the average number of Oreos I eat weekly and semi-annually. I think that might be the correct answer. Or
Oh,
or
you
it
got
kind of or it kind of looked like my property tax bill. It got me thinking semi-annual. So I
well,
started thinking my property tax bill.
you got me beat. It's Reese cups for me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So that's why I'm looking at this screen and I'm counting how many chins I have. So maybe I need to do something different. Stop eating these Reese cups. But
Okay. But you're hitting it
but
farther,
no,
baby. But you're hitting it
yeah,
farther.
yeah, no,
So
that
what is
12,192.
12,192?
That's how many shots Michael Jordan missed in his career.
Oh,
And Michael Jordan is just an outlier, right? He's probably there's arguments with LeBron James and on that topic, but there are athletes that our culture idolizes, and it's like they put them on this pedestal, but they're human beings, and I would highly recommend, and I'm not a big kind of internet thing. I've tried to stay away from social media, but I'd highly recommend going to some of the videos that Bryson DeChambeau is putting on YouTube. A good friend of mine had showed me one, and it was the one that he's trying to break 50. And he's on this video with at that time the number one ranked junior in the world. He's the lefty. I think his name's Miles. I forget his last name, but just watching that and listening to how kind of genuine Bryson on the topic of asking this junior questions like, "Man, how did you feel on the first tee? Was your heart just pumping out? Like, what was that great? Just." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, Bryson DeChambeau. Wow, okay, so he is human." These guys go through these same things. They go through being uncomfortable, and they battle through this. And that's what, if you want that prize at the end, you got to put yourself out there and do it.
yep, exactly. So I love that, man. I'm glad now I know what that number is for sure, for real. We already covered that one a little bit. And then Sam, I would love to hear this one because it's especially on our topic of know versus do, but we have some great little comments that you and I have been looking forward to hearing from people. So let me bring those up for us. Um, and I won't say the person's name. They might not want their name said or something like that. But uh, and some of y'all might be able to see it in the chat anyway. As a student teacher of the game, when things go south on the course, range or lesson tee, what have you found works best to turn it around?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think just trying to find that piece. You're I think we're all born competitors playing this game, and this game is hard. And you have high expectations. And if you believe me, talk about expectations, getting up at 5:30 and going to the course and being the first out and then practicing and missing your kids and going home and coming and staying late to hit. I mean, there was a routine where I hit 103 footers before I could leave. I had to make them. And it's talk about pressure. And I learned that from Frank Licklider. We're up at Firestone playing and it's raining out and he's over there. Oh, we can't leave, guys. It's like, come on, Frankie, let's go. Well, he had a goal. He wanted to play on tour, and by golly, I think he won twice out there and $10 million plus career earnings. And so when you have high expectations, you go out there and you're not playing your best. That's where the mental side of it comes in. You've got to have a system that gets you back refocused and like you said, Joel, like that par. Man, you play an easy hole, 485-yard par five, and you walk off with a six. And it's like, man, I just cannot believe I just made bogey on that easy par five.
But
But it
what
is
what
what
have
it
you done
is.
to turn it around is what this person's asking.
Yeah, I think you got to realize that
On the course, range, or lesson tee.
yeah, I think you got to get back to your system. I
Okay.
remember taking a putting lesson from Tony Sills a long, long, long time ago, and he said, "I'm going to build you a system, and you got to get back to that roots of figuring out, and it could be just simply as getting to the basics, sticking to that basics. Like if you're not hitting your driver with that well, or if you're off, I mean, it is. Golf is hard. You can be off and get back down to just hitting a tee shot that's in play.
Yeah, I
You know?
love it. I like to articulate it. I say to people, don't, what am I doing wrong? I don't consider a very good question. What am I not doing well that I've done well in the past? And the way you said it, Sam, was you want to go back to your system, whatever got you there.
Yeah. And it comes down, it really comes down to belief. I know it
Yeah.
sounds corny, but it's what it is. It's like I'm sitting on that practice screen hearing these pros talk about the Ohio Cup. I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm good enough to make the Ohio Cup. Well, you got to start believing that you are good enough. And
Sweet.
you got to believe in your system.
I love it. All right. So we hope that answered that question well. Sam, here's another question. Are you familiar with the book Golf Beneath the Surface? If so, would you comment?
I haven't read it,
Okay. That made that one an easy answer. That answer is no.
but I will. I will. I appreciate
Okay.
that suggestion. Yeah. I'll,
Golf Beneath the Surface. So you're taking notes, Sam, I hope. And now here's another
well,
question. I'm sorry, Sam, go ahead.
I hope it's on audio because I'm not, I don't know
Okay.
how to read.
All
I don't
right,
know
we
how to
got it.
read.
We got it on
Um,
recorded, and I'm sure Big Brother knows it too.
no, I hope
So,
the book's on audio because I don't know how to
oh,
read.
okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Here's another question. Sam, when you heard Mr. Howard say 5 a.m., did you want to wake up at 4:30 a.m. after Mr. Howard's comment?
Wow. No,
Okay, that's
I,
another no. I like these
yeah.
questions. They're yes, no questions,
And
especially when the answer is no, Sam. It makes it easy.
well, I say no because I trust my system. I trust my routine, and it was working
Yeah,
and it was successful until it was broke. Why change it?
I love that. I love that, man. So, so those are a few of those questions. Again, when we get to the formal Q&A, I'm going to go through these other questions that some of y'all have sent, many of y'all have sent in, actually a few dozen have sent in questions so that we can get inside Sam's brain all the more. But Sam, what I'm going to do now is go ahead and go through some of those things that you really wanted me to show everybody else.
That'd be great.
Okay. So again, I'm feel a little reluctant to do it, but I'm ready for it. So these are some of the other questions that we're skipping that we'd love to hear Sam talk about. And I hope some of you have seen, or all of you hopefully have seen the goodie bag that got sent to you yesterday based on our time Monday together. And you will get another addition to that goodie bag from what Sam and I are covering today for you. And this whole PowerPoint presentation, all the slides will be in there for you. So I'm going to go some of these. I'm going to flash through them like as fast as Sam can dunk a basketball. So you won't be able to read it. So just feel free to ignore it. You're going to have to because I'm going to go through it fast. But this is what we're wanting. We hopefully at the end of the day, you can say, now I know how and what I can do. Not only do I know it, but I can do it to make my strengths flourish, weaknesses fade gradually, shoot lower scores, and increase my golf self-esteem. And again, that, like I told you on Monday, that sad feeling of hypocrisy when we play terrible and then we have to give lessons. So I would ask you right where you are and everybody on the call here on the Zoom, what has happened when you have played well? So go ahead and think about that for a couple moments, maybe write down an answer or two. And because I've asked this question to many people in the last year, most of you know, I think, that about a year and a half ago, I got my first formal book published onto Amazon, and it was Amazon #1 hot new release. And so I went and I thought, I'd love to get this in the pro shops. So about 25 pro shops in our greater Cincinnati area and Dayton and Columbus have it in their pro shops. And so I would often ask some of you on the call here when I visited your pro shop, what has happened when you play well? And folks, believe it or not, I get the same response every time. In fact, one of the people on the call right now was one of the few people that responded in a different way that I'm about to describe. But this is what the same response was, except for this one person who's on the call today that I can recall. I say, hey man, or young lady, what happens? What's happened when you've played well? Well, I don't know. And then they start. But I've basically stumped most PGA pros when I've asked this question. And of course, normal people for sure are stumped when I ask this question. But I get the same headwind. They just kind of gaze up in the sky and their lips don't move a bit. They don't have an answer. And that saddens me so much. I'm like, oh man. I said, man, I know more about your game than you. I know what you do when you play well. We are all on a bell curve. All right. Sam and Bryson and Joel and John Marshy and Steve Groves and Taylor Suggs and Mrs. Kerfluffle, the lady who shoots 95 at the club. Every one of us play golf the exact same way in the sense that we all have our own personal bell curve. And 20% of Bryson's rounds are on the good side of his bell curve, 20% are on the poor side of his bell curve, and 60% are average. And interestingly, as I alluded to briefly at the end of our talk on Monday, there's finally one golf stat that determines where we finish on that. And I held this piece of paper up, and I'm going to just briefly say this. This is 84 nine-hole rounds of people like Bryson, Rory, Tiger, and Phil. Over the last 5 or 6 years. I can see every shot of theirs on the computer, right? And so when they play poorly, their average out of these 16 rounds out of the 84 that were on the poor side of their bell curve averaged 40. These 16 rounds, Sam, can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay. These 16 rounds on the good side of their bell curve averaged 32, and their average 52 out of 84 rounds averaged 36. But there's one stat that when they improve this one stat, this is what their bell curve changes into. So you see their bell curve is like an inchworm, right? It is inched down a little bit lower. And so how happy would a tour player be? He says, well, when I play poorly, I average 80. He'd be say, you know, when I play poorly, I average 37 because their whole bell curve is shifted down. And then he says, when I play average, man, I shoot 72, but when I play average now, I shoot 68, all because of this one stat. Drives out of play, miss three putts, and miss pitches. When Bryson and you have zero bozo shot, and that's why I call the three bozo shots. 40% of the time you played good, 55% of the time you played average, 5% of the time you played poorly. And guess what? That's exactly what I've been telling people for decades. And look at this now. Now their worst round is 38, right? Their 16 worst rounds, poor rounds on their bell curve are 37 when they have no drives out of play, missed pitches, or three putts. And now look up here, 40% of their rounds are good on this old bell curve now, 60% are average, and 0% are poor. This eliminates, or it makes your poor rounds, it makes all your rounds. And folks, this is the same thing I've seen for 35 years. I won't tell you now, but I first started seeing this in normal people 35 years ago down the Jacksonville, Ponte Vedra area. And I've continued to learn and observe and be humble and try to open-mindedly say, you know, what's going on here. These are the things I'm going to skip through that you can look back at here after our time today, because I'll send you this whole uh, thing. This also helps me understand the ridiculousness of strokes gained. When Bryson won that US Open at Pinehurst a year and a half ago, he was 23rd, tied for 23rd in strokes gained. And I told y'all that I would reveal who this PGA pro is that's improved their stroke average for 9 holes every year for the last 6 years. And that PGA pro that I help is Joel Suggs. People would say to me, well, look at Bubba there, Joel. You know, he's never had a lesson. Look at him. He's never had a lesson. Look how good he's playing. He just goes by feel. I say, really? Sam, what would you say to that person who says that Bubba's never had a lesson?
Uh, I don't know.
I would say, no, I think he's had a million lessons. You've
Yeah.
described all the lessons you've given yourself over the years today, Sam.
Yeah.
You've given yourself a million lessons. And yeah, you have, like you said, you're always picking people's brains and stuff. But I'm going to tell you, when we can work on ourselves and become our own best teacher, it's quite a biblical concept. Do you who teach others not teach yourself?
Mhm.
So this is what I've been doing for many years. I showed you all that the other day. This is again something I won't cover right now. This is me simply keeping track of my bozo shots. 75 9-hole rounds on par three courses in 2025. This is 75 9-hole rounds on non-par three courses in 2025. Again, I'm not going to go through it all. But finally, the one golf stat that determines your personal PGA score has been found by little old Joel here. And so the other thing I'll mention about this is that for people our age and older, Sam, what would we talk about? You're just about the guys younger than you don't have this experience, but everybody that's your age and my age and older, what did we always talk about when PGA pros got together in the old days? What were discussions about around the lunch table or on the range or, you know, at the section meeting, maybe even formally? What was the main topic?
What with playing?
Yeah, it was
Or
with playing. What, I mean, wouldn't you say it was the golf swing? All the arguments and
on?
discussions were about the golf
Oh
swing?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the swing tips or swing thoughts and
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Well, because of video and 3D kinematic sequence things, right? That
yeah,
there's no more mystery I feel about the golf swing.
yeah. It's
But
fair.
I'm afraid, Sam, what's taken its place in the last 10 years is the golf stat, you know, nirvana.
Yeah.
That, oh boy, strokes gained, baby. I had two really smart P&G executives who took semi-private lessons from me for a number of years. They walked in one day and they said, Joel, buddy, we got to work on our approach shots from 175 to 200. Why do you think they asked that one, Sam? Why'd they tell me that? Why do you think they told me that
What
one?
175 to 200.
Yeah, they both shoot around 85 to 95.
Yeah,
Where,
that's not.
where did they get the idea that if they or improve their approaches from 175 to 200, they're going to play great?
Yeah, that probably from strokes gained.
Exactly. They said, Joel, we saw the broadcast on Golf Channel and they sliced and diced and said the reason Tiger is demolishing the PGA Tour these days is because of his approaches from 175 to 200. So now there's all this back and forth. Like we used to argue about swing back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Well, now everybody's, talking about stats, especially the launch monitor stats, right? But I'm going to say you can save a whole lot of worry if you just understand one stat for yourself. Drives out of play, missed pitches, and three putts. And what Sam and I have talked about, he asked me, he said, Joel, when I started showing Sam some of these things a few weeks ago, he said, well, Joel, I appreciate all this, but what should I work on? This is every shot I've hit in the last 6 years, if you really care to study that. This is the last 13 rounds from last season. Yeah. So you can study that a little bit if you want. So this is real anal stuff here. A little bit of humor for you there. But Sam asked me, he said, well, Joel, based on these things, what should I work on? I said, well, Sam, I really don't think that's that great of a question. What should I work on? Do you remember what I said, Sam?
Pick up a basketball.
Yeah,
No.
no, it's about, I said, Sam, you are doing so many things well. When Bryson shot that big round at the British Open last year, 78 or something, remember how many missed pitches he had that day, Sam?
I don't.
Five. He had
Yeah.
five missed pitches, and then he plays the last three rounds in record. Only one player in history has ever shot lower than him in the last three rounds. So if he doesn't have those five missed pitches on the first day,
Yeah.
probably wins the tournament. And and yet, what did Bryson talk about when they said, "Well, Bryson, you shot 78"? He says, "Well, the wind and the cold here, and these new irons I have, the thermodynamics of rain playing in the rain, and the ball is sliding up the iron face, and so I'm not going to purport to know more about Bryson than he knows about his own game. But I will state very confidently he had five times he missed a green with a pitch that day. And I'm going to say that's the simplest explanation for a simple Amish guy like Joel to say that's really what changed his score. And I agree. I'm not going to tell Bryson he knows more about the thermodynamics and the humidity and the air resistance and the barometric pressure, believe me. So I'm sure he's correct about that, but I'm sure I'm correct about this too. And also, Sam, I said, Sam, Aunt Sis gave me a great definition. I don't even go to that story because it takes a few minutes. But I said, look, there's short game where y-axis has more important than the x-axis. Just to maybe break a few bubbles here, I would say I've never taught the 3-foot circle to anybody in putting in my entire life because that communicates to people, our players and ourselves, that distance and direction are of equal importance. And we all know that's not correct. So I instead like to conceptualize the XY axis when we're talking about your putt, chip, and pitch in your short game. And then just in the last few years, in fact, since I studied some other things from some other good instructors around the country, I said, you know what, Joel, there's a nice, simple delineation to be made here. I've taught people XY axis for 35, 40 years for their short game. But I have only come to realize in the last few years that in your full swing, we can absolutely safely say that the x-axis in your full swing actually has way more importance than the y-axis because Sam never hits an 8-iron 100 yards or 200 yards. We know Sam is going to hit his 8-iron about the right distance, and he has 13 clubs besides his putter to hit it the perfect distance. But what gets Sam and everybody, all the rest of us, in trouble with our drive and approach is if it goes crooked. Unlike the short game, where the whole world hits them straight in our short game, right? All due reverence to the eternal golf gods, we've finally found something easy in golf to hit a putt, chip, and pitch straight. There's a little more humor for us. So I said to Sam, Sam, buddy, just keep growing the beautiful grass. Like you said, depend on your systems. you've been a great player your whole, well, not your whole life. I didn't realize you were not that good as a ninth grader, man. That's even more inspiring for me, Sam, to hear about that, man. But I said, Sam, you're doing a million good things. A little more humor for you there that has some truth to it. Sam, just keep getting your drive in play, keep getting your approach to leave a putter chip, keep getting your pitch on the green, and then gradually over time, as you continue to hit a million putts, the perfect distance, your scores will gradually come down. And you can say to your wife, honey, I'm just a perfect kind of guy. Would she agree with that, Sam?
Absolutely.
Good. And then the secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And then when it comes to your full swing, just hit a million drives in play and hit a million approaches in your practice. Again, y'all can go through some of these details. And we would all, you don't have to ask your wife this, Sam. We would all say you're just a straight shooting direct kind of guy. So we appreciate that about you, Sam. And then there's the timeless golf principle. What should I work on? I don't think is a good question. What can I grow? What's the grass I can grow so the weeds don't even have any room? That's a phenomenal thing right there that Bryson put on. This is a nice quote. You know, growing up, we were not allowed to be around my dad's side of the family, which is the Suggs side, the golf side. And so I'd see my aunt in magazines and encyclopedias and golf books. Well, now I see her on the internet. So it's kind of cool. But to have this discipline and to understand this is me and my game. And these are other scorecards that again you can look through if you want to try and understand that more. But this is what I already know about your game because you're human. The whole planet is like this. So today we want you to walk out of here. We're going to pick Sam's brain some more here and get to more of your questions. Now I know how and what I can do to make my strengths flourish, weaknesses fade gradually, shoot lower scores, and increase my self-esteem. So, Sam, it's 10 after 9. Sam, can you give us some thoughts about that before I get to these Q&As?
A lot of information there, but it's very helpful. I think you just take your time and go through it, and that's a great system to have. It's just part of the total package of being a good player and a good instructor and a good PGA pro.
Okay, Sam, thank you. And then I've put the work in and felt prepared. That's a comment from one of the guys, not a question directly so much. Before I get to the responses here, feel free to unmute yourself and even get yourself on camera if you like. These are the responses that y'all have given me when you emailed in questions so that we can make sure we cover the things you want on Monday, today, and on Friday. But if there's anybody who wants to just unmute yourselves with your audio, and even if you want to unmute yourselves with your camera, feel free to ask Sam a question. Sam, do you want to ask anybody here a question? Can you see the attendees?
Yeah, I do I have a comment about Chat GPT, right?
Okay, go.
Technology moving forward, where a good friend of mine typed in, I don't know if I told you this, Joel, but a good friend of mine typed in how to become an elite player. And Chat GPT spits out really quickly, this is what you must do. Here's your practice routine. And it was very interesting because it was like 4.5 hours that you need to work daily, practice on your golf game is what it suggested. Now, elite player, again, that's a different, what is that, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know if he typed in, I want to win a PGA Tour event, I want to win the state open, I want, this or that, or just win a chapter pro-am. Who knows? But uh it was interesting because ChatGPT said you had to spend 90 minutes putting. And my buddy goes, have you ever timed your putting? I said, I never have. I've never put a watch to it or a timer or anything. And he goes, try it. So I did. I went out there and it was painful. It was painful to sit there and putt for 90 minutes. Now, when I was done, my back was a little sore and my feel, my touch, everything was good, but I don't know if that's for everyone, and it gets back to that topic of, the neuropaths and how you how people learn. Like it could be detrimental if somebody just their attention span, like well, you're going out there and you're just ingraining bad habits, or there might be players that need to spend 2 hours putting, but I think you got to find your niche and you got to get out there and try it.
Sweet. You have any questions for anybody, Sam,
Well,
that you see?
I saw Jonesy on there. I don't know if he can get on the phone, but I grew up playing golf with Jonesy and junior golf, and he might have some funny stories, or like the last time we talked about junior golf, he goes, "Man, Sam, you were always the one over there quiet and practicing and grinding and tournament time. It'd be like the Ben Hogan effect where you just go out there and play and you don't socialize." And I changed the way I look at golf now. Like when I tee it up, I look at it as an opportunity of networking and meeting people. And the last tournament I played in, I got paired up with Tom Bach. We're down at the PGA Golf Club. Our scores just kind of collided where we're in the same group. And then I got paired up with a gentleman from uh, Connecticut, and he was a, a head pro at uh, forget the name of the course, but his next door neighbor was Shinnecock. And just the stories and just asking him questions like, "Hey, how's it going? What you got?" And we got finished playing, and I mean, I shot 66, so I was in a great mood. But the day before, I shoot 78, but I didn't have any bozo tee shots when I shot 66. I kept it in play and made some putts, and so we wrap up and we go over the range and we're hitting and we're just talking. We're talking about fundamentals, and he's a good instructor, and I got more nuggets from him hitting balls on the range. So going from that Ben Hogan of just nose to the grindstone to now it's open up and networking and meeting other PGA pros and friends. You get your friendships from that. But
Sweet.
if Jonesy wants to share any stories, I know he was the president of our chapter, and obviously he's done well in the PGA and trying to grow the game of golf and very active in the PGA of America. Um,
Here's a question that came in.
All right,
yeah.
Sammy, you
Go
got
ahead,
me.
Mr. Marcy.
Here comes Jonesy.
Mr. Marcy or
So
Jones?
this is Brian
Go
Jonesy.
ahead, Brian.
So you have to apologize. I'm a couple hours behind you. I'm in Colorado right now. We're getting ready to
Okay.
head back from family trip, but yeah, Sam. I mean, I'm sitting here and there's a lot of things that are flooding, and I remember that conversation of always giving you grief about, we were playing some junior tournaments, and it was me and Sonny, I think John Ritter, and we
Yeah.
were all pretty competitive, and we're all, me, Sonny, and John are joking in between shots, going down the fairways, and Sam over there looks like, like he's taking the ACT for the 100th time. Uh, but I think because I've kind of come in and out of trying to play tournament golf myself for different reasons. When I was on the national board, it took a lot of time. Obviously having, family obligations. And, I think back to that comment, and think it was one of your questions, Joel. It's like, well, you know, and guys like Sam and Bob and everybody, they're like, these guys, and they're so good, and everybody gets jealous. Well, I remember Paul Hobart and I used to talk about that. And it was like, you know what, guys? One, if you want to be that good, you've got to put the time in it or go find a job that allows you to do it. And honestly, I'd say a lot of us probably have that type of job. It's just about making the sacrifices like Sam does, getting up that early. And I mean, Howard's probably told me that same comment. Whether it's how many balls did you hit last week? And who knows what the number I give you is. Well, I'm going to hit 30 more than you because you beat me today.
Mhm.
Whatever the case is. And at the end of the day, it comes down to, you've got to make the time. And I'm like Sam now at this age. And, I've had some success as a player over time in college and stuff and well, but you know, there was a time too where I really felt like I get to a section of it and I put so much pressure on myself to play well in that specific event. And, in the section of it, I only come up at that point, and, the way our schedule was once a year. or it's a section championship. And but I go out and play with members, or I go out and play with just, some guys for fun and play really well. And even my wife Tracy's like, she goes, "You ever think maybe you just try too hard?" And I started thinking about that. I'm like, well, is it really that I'm trying too hard, or is it the fact that, going back to kind of Joel's, bell curve, is it just, that just the timing just didn't come up. I mean, it's just like every tour player, right? They all want to play good in the majors. Well, you just got to put the work in. You never know when it's going to show up. And if you stick with your process, and obviously the first stage is going to be have a process. If you don't have a process and you're not putting any kind of effort in, well, what do you think you're going to get out of it? I mean, obviously I teach a lot, and we all joke as instructors, right? Practice what you preach. What are you telling your students? Well, are you actually doing the same thing?
Yep,
And if
that's
you're not doing the same thing, even as much as you can, or you're willing to sacrifice that time, then why would you expect any different result, the same way we wouldn't expect any different result from a student who doesn't do
student.
the homework we give them, or whatever that case might be.
Indeed, Brian, absolutely. The uh and again, Brian, like we talked about on Monday, a lot of what we're talking about this week is to try and get out of that mindset. And like you alluded to, it's like, man, I can still get a job where I can have a good time, be a good player, and have it be successful in my career without having to beat Sam and Bob, you
Well,
know?
I got, hey, Jonesy, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, and it just goes to show you your dedication. You're out on a family trip, out 2 hours from us, and you're on this call. So it's very admirable of you, and it kind of goes to show you your whole life of being around golf and how important it is to you. But I got a question for you with the circles that you run around with the PGA of America. That I just got an email about coaching the coach, and that's a new program where I don't know if you're on the call earlier, but I'm trying to get my teaching and coaching certification, and I kind of ran into a speed bump where tournaments are not considered education. And I talked to the head of that uh, program of teaching and coaching, and I just asked him, I said, why is that not considered education? Because I learn a ton. When I go out and play, I learn, I improve, and I take nuggets back to my students. And and then maybe 2 weeks later, I get the email of coaching coach where they're encouraging play more golf, and they have a panel of great instructors. And when I'm reading through all this, I was excited. I'm reading the paragraphs, and I'm looking to see about playing in tournaments or playing more golf, and there was really nothing said other than this panel is going to coach the coach to play more golf, and I'm wondering how many coaches are actually playing golf. So I didn't know if you have any insight, like I said, with the circles that you run around with the PGA guys. We see
Well,
Steve Parker down south a lot, and he's awesome and he's easy to talk to. And I didn't know if you had anything to mention about that topic.
yeah, I mean, I feel like over the years it's always been you know, we're trying to get away from, well, you've got all these guys that you don't want to just reward the guys that are doing real well. I mean, like Omar, you're rusty, right? And all that type of stuff. And you know, it's a double-edged sword sometimes, because I think sometimes when we see the people that are involved in our education side, it's always on the business side, it's always on the operations side, it's always on the executive side, and they don't realize that. I mean, we've alluded to it quite a few times. What makes us different as PGA professionals is the fact that we can play the game at a pretty high level. And I'm not saying it's got to be a high level that you're shooting under par every time, but we're still, like, I think Joel mentioned the other day, we're still in probably that top 10%. And we're teaching the other, 80%,
Yeah.
or 90%.
Yep.
And, I mean, we joke it sometimes. I'm like, look, you could put a monkey behind the counter and bang the cash register, but to have someone there who can speak the game to our, people and our students and so forth, I think there should be more to that. I know Joel works quite a bit as well over the years, and I do too with Will Robbins and so forth. And, a lot of it is getting our students out onto the golf course, whether we play with them or we're just getting with them or watching them actually play the game. That's how we're going to see, hey, are they hitting the bozo shots? Or is their chipping really that bad? Because what happens? They walk into us and they go, oh man, I'm a great chipper and a putter. And you take them over the putting green or you watch them play 3 holes and you go, good Lord, your short game is horrendous. And then you show them a couple different shots. I had a guy one time that the only chip shot he could ever hit was a bump and run. Well, that's great for about half of his shots, but how many times he got behind a bunker and he couldn't get it over green? You show him how to hit a flop shot, it was like a whole new world. I mean, so getting out there, it's an education. And one of the coolest things too, I have found is when I go out and put myself on the line to play and I have a bad experience or things don't go the way you want, you come back and all of a sudden you're standing there with that student and you can see their frustration when you can relate to them and go, you know what? I was playing a tournament the other day and I got over this shot. Believe it or not, I had an 8 iron. I was playing pretty good. Swing was feeling good. And all of a sudden I shanked the thing dead right. And they go, what? And I go, it happens. It's golf. And if you go out and play golf and don't expect to hit bad shots, you're going to be really disappointed.
Yeah.
And when they start to hear that, and the fact that you've put yourself through it, even at our level, they go, wow, well, maybe this isn't so bad. I mean, everybody knows the Ben Hogan saying, right? If he could hit 2 shots in 18 holes the way he wanted to in a round of golf, it was a good day. I'm like, where's that put Jonesy?
Yeah.
I'll take 2 a month then, you know?
So another thing I'd tell everybody who doesn't know is not from around here. Brian is one of the past presidents of our section too. The nice things that Sam has said about him. So it's nice that he's on here again, 2 hours behind us on the early morning. So Brian, we appreciate you being here. The Sam, can I ask you another question from the questions that came in?
Yeah.
They're kind of related. It just typed in avoid perceived embarrassment, quiet the voice in the brain that focuses on negativity. How can I play with more confidence? How can I get back my desire to compete?
Yeah. I think you just got to get comfortable being uncomfortable and put yourself out there because once you break through, it's a snowball effect. I think you'll get, but hopefully it happens sooner than later, but uh, you just got to keep fighting.
Yep. And then
I,
I would say this to that response. Tell me what you think of this, Sam. These
yeah.
are my scorecards from 2025. So what I do, and I mentioned this briefly on Monday, these are my scorecards from 2024. These are my scorecards from 2023. And they sit right here on my desk in my studio to show people, like Brian's talking about, playing in front of people, with people. And all the things I've sent you are all my shots from the last 6 years. So I feel pressure on every shot. I do not play against Sam in chapter or section events. I've watched him and I've admired him and I've even tracked some of his rounds for him, well, to help Taylor learn mainly, and for me to keep learning. And I've even shown him to Sam, as you've seen in the goodie bag. There's a video of that. But I like to try and build pressure to answer that question here of how can I avoid embarrassment? How can I quieten the voice in the brain that focuses on negativity? How can I play with more confidence? How can I get my desire to compete? I would say compete against yourself. Make yourself better. Keep your scorecards, keep your stats, know thy golf self, and you'll feel the good pressure. And you'll say, yeah, pressure now with other people doesn't matter as much.
And I would add too is build that system. I kind of asked that same question to a Bob Sowards. And Bobby is just he's realized he's reached a point where I mean Bob played in 2 major championships last year. He qualified for the senior PGA championship. He goes down and he qualifies for the regular PGA championship in one year. Like it's just impressive. And he told me that he's just gotten to the point where at his age he's happy with this swing. He's comfortable with the swing. And he might put more emphasis on course management or that attitude where you just go out there and build confidence. And it could start just with that first tee shot. Like what you said, Joel, is stick to what you're good at. Focus on what you're good at instead of sitting there beating your brain and going, where do I need to improve?
Yep. Now, John, I keep seeing your thing get highlighted. Is Mr. Marshy somehow got a funny computer thing glitch going where he keeps getting highlighted, or does he want to ask a question? He's just muted himself, it seems. I hope I'm not embarrassing him. But we all, those of us around Southern Ohio love Mr. Marshy and respect him immensely and love to hear, like Sam said earlier today, it's just good to hear his voice.
I'm sorry. Am I live now?
You're live now, John. We can hear you.
I was just I wanted to make a comment about golf beneath the surface because it does touch on it touches on the anxiety people feel, and it explains it in a way that you can handle it. That it's a normal, natural reaction when things are very important to you, like performing golf well or playing in a tournament well. You can't fool your brain. So your brain is going to put that importance on it. And the book talks about how to deal with the anxiety. The anxiety is the performance killer, the nerves are the performance enhancer. So if you can separate it, understand you have a prefrontal cortex that allows you to realize, hey, I'm not dying here. I'm not in a, we go into a survival mode. There's nothing here that's going to kill me, that you can tend to accept it and then perform. And then that the accepting the possibility of failure, it increases the odds of success. And when you try to, you know, fight against those feelings, you anchor those feelings. And
Yes.
so once you start accepting, yes, this is important to me, I must have some confidence because I'm here. I've entered the tournament. I must have some confidence in my ability, obviously, and not try to fight the nerves, accept the nerves, embrace the nerves. The great Jim Colbert said that's when I felt alive, is when I was in that. Most people fight that. They try to suppress it and don't embrace it. So I just wanted to interject that if you've not seen the book, it's Dr. Raymond Pryor, and it's pretty dense. If you dropped it on the floor, it would break the floor. So you have to treat it like it's a college course. And if anybody would like my notes, I'd be happy to send them to you. I have 25 pages of notes in
Wow.
Microsoft Word because it's very, very dense. But it's anybody that's, he works with Ryder Cup players, tour players, and Sam's accomplished so much that I just wanted to bring it to his attention and let him look at it, and it may take him even farther. So
John,
that's
that
all I got to say.
John, that's great. That is awesome. And I think I shared earlier, I'm always trying to improve and grow. So I would definitely be interested in looking at your notes and even I'm gonna definitely get the book too. So that's fantastic.
I heard John and Sam and everybody else, I heard a similar line of reasoning, Mr. Marshy, on a story about a journeyman tour player. Some of y'all may know him. I don't remember his name, but maybe you heard the same interview. But he was just kind of a typical journeyman tour player. And then all of a sudden he started, kind of like JJ Spawn maybe a little bit. All of a sudden he started appearing. He didn't win any tournaments, but over a period of, 2, 4, 6, 8 months, kind of, and he continued in the next thing, he started playing better, finishing higher and higher. And so he got called in the interview room a little more often. And one of the questions that got asked was, wow, Mr. Journeyman tour player, now higher level tour player, what has changed? Have you been working with a certain golf pro to help your swing? The typical question, have you started eating better, or you hitting it farther, you're working out? And he says, no, he says, what happened was about 8, 10 months ago, this thought popped in my head that has just radically changed my game to where now y'all are talking to me. He says, something happened. All of a sudden, I just realized that the only people on the property here today that care about what I shoot are my wife and me. No one's going to go home, even the guys I played with, you know. I mean, Sam has mentioned a few of the guys he played with in some of these monumental rounds today. And when it's Stuart Sink and Zach Johnson and Angel Cabrera, I mean, that's pretty cool stuff. And that's why we have Sam here today. And he's earned that enjoyment. But really, I mean, almost all the rounds we played, we don't remember if they were significant to us, we don't remember. And so this is what helped that guy start to really improve on the money list. Because he said, I realized that nobody but my wife and I care what I shoot today. So
Yeah,
what a beautiful little principle.
that,
Now,
that
John,
is.
isn't that going along the same lines?
Well, in a way, look
Similar? Okay.
again. In a way, yeah. It's Dr. Pryor's book. He explains that you can't fool your brain. You know, the brain knows what's important, and so the idea is to embrace it, um, accept it, and then you start to be able to use the nerves and the adrenaline as a positive. You know, as I said earlier, anxiety is a performance detractor where nerves are, you know, we all imagine, you know, you watch Michael Jordan. You spoke about Michael Jordan earlier. When somebody who is wonderfully trained and has confidence in their ability and has the adrenaline and the nervous energy working towards them, they actually can perform better because they're in almost a superhuman state. And that's what he's trying to enhance is the anxiety is what's killing it. So if you understand that I'm not in danger and that I accept the nerves and I accept the adrenaline that comes with it and that dopamine that comes with it, that really makes me feel well. And he calls it the flow state. You know, we know it as the zone. He says, you know, you don't have to enter the zone to be able to play extremely well. It helps, you know, and it's just kind of a natural thing you fall in and out of. But that's, you know, and I know Sam has experienced the zone. He talked about shooting 66 and you know, and he was 5 under up at TPC. And, you know, the nice thing what Sam did is that he fell out of the zone, but then he got back and he recovered from it. Now, that's a very important thing that, you know, sometimes, you know, it becomes an avalanche when you fall out of the zone and things go awry. But, you know, it's just, you know, your experience as a tournament player is what helped you handle that. And,
Yep.
but
And
that's
John,
what I'm saying is that everybody experiences it. It's a natural human emotion. It's hardwired into us from the days of a caveman who was running from us, you know, from a saber-toothed tiger, because they
right,
either had to run, they had to fight, or they had to
right,
freeze. You know, one of the
right.
three was going to happen. So if you realize, well, I'm not in that situation, I'm going to accept the adrenaline and the nerves because I know it's going to make me play better if I just allow, if I embrace it.
Yeah. And John, go ahead, Sam, and then I'll mention another
Well,
thing.
I was going to say this is a great topic, and it's almost like the only way that you can replicate that feeling is you have to get out there and do it. Sign up for a tournament, go play, and do it. It is so hard to practice that, to put yourself in that arena, and the only way you can do it is to do it. And you know, I'm bragging on my son, but my son's he's in grad school for at UK for psychology and counseling, and he's doing some internship and studying, taking all these classes about the brain and behavior and all that. And every time I talk to him, it's just like, man, I learned something new. And I told him about a situation where we had an upset customer call, and he was about a credit card charge, and he didn't understand like what pending meant on his credit card, but because we had two charges, and I'm sitting there trying to talk to him, and I couldn't please him. My heart, I'm starting to sweat. I'm starting to get mad. I'm trying to stay cool. And I'm like, I told my son, I said, why was I getting so emotional? And he said, that customer was in an irrational state. There's nothing you could have done or said at that time other than, sir, please call me back in 2 hours and I'll help you out. You know, and in a situation like that, like John was talking about, you know, in a tournament and the question prior, like when you lose it on a golf course, what do you do? Well, everybody's a little bit different, but you can learn methods, you can learn a system, and I think it comes down to awareness
Yep.
and practice and experience. So you just got to get out there and do it.
And then one of the things I'd like to bring it back to is that um, the normal PGA pro like myself that doesn't compete with guys like John and Brian and Sam, that these are the guys, you guys are talking about tournaments, but what we've also talked about this week is how to help all PGA pros, if they want to, play more and better. And I'm telling you, we've talked about it on Monday and some today, even when we're playing with customers, members, students, we feel the same pressure, believe it or not. And John, you would readily agree, I would think, and Mr. Pryor, Dr. Pryor, I'm sure would agree that, uh, the pressure that each individual feels for themselves is their own individual pressure. It's not just that anybody who's in a US Open or a section championship has a certain unique pressure. It's a unique pressure, absolutely. But there's a different type of unique pressure for a guy like me who's worried about shooting 85 when I used to go out and play with people in playing lessons. And again, what I would say, that's what I'm interested in helping people with this week as well.
And
The
I
normal
think
pros.
I think Joel, tournament, the word tournament is kind of relative though. I mean, a tournament could be playing with your members, or I think tournament is that threshold where you feel uncomfortable.
Indeed.
Exactly. Or
Like
your
that.
student walking up to the first tee on a
Exactly.
Yeah.
Saturday or Sunday morning. It's the same experience. They're having exactly the same experience you had
Exactly.
teeing off at the PGA Championship.
That's what I mean. Exactly. And
Yes.
what I would tell you guys also is I briefly mentioned this. I did not make a goal 6 years ago to improve my stroke average every year. And I did not know this was a truth about me until a few weeks ago. A student was actually in my office in my studio here looking at some of my numbers, and he said, "Wow, man, you've improved every year for 6 straight years, Joel." I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, look at it, Joel. This thing you're showing me here, look at that." I said, "Okay, I'll look at it a little closer." I mean, obviously, I've studied this to the nth degree. Well, that's pretty cool. I have. I've improved every year for 6 straight years. And in a much smaller way, but important to me personally and important to hopefully other PGA pros here. When Anthony Kim, I hope y'all remember this, from 2008, Anthony Kim was on that 13th hole, I think the downhill par three at Valhalla in the Ryder Cup. And there's a par three, he's playing Sergio in singles. It's zany, it's late afternoon on Sunday. He wins the hole, I think, wins the match. So you can imagine what's going on down there at Valhalla. And he makes his putt or whatever, and he stomps off the green with his putter headed straight to 14T. And the announcers are like, "Wow, he didn't shake Sergio's hand." And the people and he gets going, and now the crowd dies down a little bit because they're bewildered about what's going on. Where's he going? And he was going to the 14th tee, and people started yelling. The crowd died down. You could hear people now yelling at him. "Anthony, hey, Anthony, stop." And he's still going like this. Anthony. And so it's just people close to him. And they finally got him to realize what had occurred, that he had just beaten Sergio. But it was such like the quintessential example of, man, he was in the moment, one shot at a time. He apparently was not worried about beating Sergio. And in a much smaller way, guys, obviously, this is little old Joel here, being able to, instead of shoot 77 around my local munis here, being able to shoot more around 72 and 3. But it's because, again, I was just one little thing at a time. And I've found, John, that when we do that, and Sam, we've talked about this some, when you're just doing one thing at a time, one day at a time, you're not worried about tomorrow, you're not worried about what other people think. Some of that anxiety, John, does go away. I'm sure you would agree. And like you just said, John, it's the same for little old Joel here as it is for Sam or Mr. Marshy or Brian Jones playing in those section championships or even the national tournaments.
Well,
And
exactly,
that's what I
Joe.
want all of us to feel. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things that Dr. Pryor talks about is multitasking. Is that a lot of times golfers they're trying to hit a good shot and not trying to hit a bad shot at the same time. So imagine trying to open the door and close the door at the same time. And so it's just what you said. Simplify it. Let's get it down to as simple as we can make it.
I got a note here from another person typing in. Again, I won't say their name. They can feel free to say it. Tagging on to Mr. Marshy, good read. Your brain swings every club. That's a cool one there. That's a book that this attendee here is typing in, your brain swings every club. And then what the attendee here says, I'm always curious to know why I feel or react what John was referring to. Once you know, it can be overcome. So again, I would love to hear from that gentleman who I know is a very good player also. So if he wants to pipe in live and in person, we'd love to hear from him. So Sam or John or anyone else, would you have a comment about this? Tagging on to John Marshy, good read is your brain swings every club. I'm always curious to know why I feel or react what John was referring to. Once you know, it can be overcome. Go ahead.
I don't know if you can hear me. That was my.
If Mr. Delaney's trying to talk, we can barely hear you. If you can do a little something better with your,
I think my microphone is kind of low here. I'm not.
Does anybody hear Pat Delaney? I'm not hearing him very well.
No.
Doggone it. I would love to hear from
That's my.
Pat Delaney. Are you seeing that, Sam, that Pat's trying to get in?
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to share some Airbnbs with Pat down in Florida during winter golf, and he's probably in the kitchen cooking because he's a phenomenal cook. So,
Oh, you're bringing him in. Your voice bringing him in, Sam. I heard him better. Go, Pat, please.
You can hear
Hot
me
dog.
there he is.
We need the audio better, though, Pat, to hear you.
Yeah, that was my little tag in there.
No, we're still not hearing you very well.
I'll be darned.
Boy, I want to hear Pat.
I think my.
Doggone it.
I'll type a message here.
Yeah, type it in. I will tell y'all that earlier when I asked all you PGA pros and many others who were not here, obviously, when I would go to say, do you want to sell my book in your pro shop? And I ask them, what happens when you play well? And no one has an answer. The vast majority of PGA pros and other golfers don't know what they do when they play well. And I said, there's one man I asked that question of in the last year around Cincinnati, Columbus, and Dayton who had a really good answer. It was Pat Delaney. He knew what he did well in his good rounds better than any other respondent I'd asked that question of. So that's why I'm looking forward. I hope we get to hear Pat. He said he's going to type it in. I'll look at it, Pat, see what I can see in the chat. Again, I want to call these guys Mr. Delaney and Mr. Marshy and Mr. Groves, but they all tell me to call them by their first names. My mic not working well. Yeah, we agree with that, Pat. You need a Zoom caddy like Steve and Sam and I have. Can you talk anymore at all, Pat, or are you typing in?
I'm gonna. Can you hear me now? Are you getting any? Nothing.
Nothing. All right, doggone it. You
I'm
want
not
to type
hearing
anything
you
in
too
for us at
bad.
all?
Yeah, I'm not hearing Pat too bad.
Oh, good. Then go ahead. Go ahead, Pat.
Okay.
Loud as possible.
Yeah, the reading that book with your brain swings every club. One particular, just an example, putting. We have to, when we putt, it's unlike other sports. We don't even look at our target. We have to memorize where the target is, basically. And getting back to what Joel would say, distance is what's critical there. So you have to memorize the distance without looking at it. And in that book, it talks about how to do it. When you talk about nerves, I think that's where we were a little while back. What John was talking about with the fight or flight and all that goes. There's some hacks that you can do, like breathing. People don't usually aren't even taught how to breathe. On that first tee, just breathe or how to breathe. I was never taught how to do that or how to, you just get experience and finally it goes away. Well, you can learn to do things, but you have to know why it happened. And in this book, he explains what happens in your brain and how it affects your body. And if you can have a neural hack, basically, by just breathing. and it's got lots of really really interesting things. It's not a big book like John's, where it probably and I'm sure John's book goes into it hugely, and John's book is referred to in this book. This is a much shorter little read, uh,
Okay, great.
but
I could hear you
it's
faintly. Good.
real enlightening about the neural hacks that you can actually do to make what happens when you're playing bad. How do you get out of it? How do you turn yourself around? Things like that.
Great. Thank you, Pat. That sounds like a very great read. I look forward
Hey,
to checking
Joel.
that out. Yep, I'm going to mute it. Okay, I turned it way up. Now someone who chimed in, I'm looking forward to hearing them, but now I'm going to turn my volume down so I can hear a normal thing. Pat, thanks so much. I will tell you one more thing. A lot of you guys I've seen play because you got paired with our son Taylor when I'm out gathering facts about our son's game. And again, watching Pat at Springfield Country Club a few years ago impressed me a whole lot about his game. So again, I'm very honored to have you guys here trying to help other younger guys and even other guys our age to play better. So that's beautiful. Now, someone said hello, Joel.
Yeah, hey, it's Ashley Thomas.
Okay, good,
Thanks
Ashley.
for the invite. Yeah, I've been having fun listening to everybody. But I just wanted to touch on what you guys were talking about because it's something that I often ask my students, like, whether they hit a good or a bad shot, or they had a good round or a bad round. What was it? Like, what key takeaways can we bring out of that round to help us for the next round, right? So, and similar to probably all the answers you get, Joel, like people are like, I don't know. I don't know what I did, right? And so as an instructor, like really being able to teach them like, okay, this is what happened, when things went bad, this is what happened when things went right. And I think where people struggle the most with like what went right is I think majority with golf, we expect to hit good shots, right? And we expect to hit perfect shots. So when we go out there and we play a great round, we're supposed to do that. So we're not trying to figure out why it happened because that's what we went there to do, right? So I think that can be. I think that's one of the biggest barriers. And again, that's the expectation side, right?
Yep, absolutely. Sam, would you like
Um,
to speak about that topic that Ashley has brought up?
Yeah, I mean, behind every successful man is a woman, and Ashley Thomas is married to Mike Thomas. So what she says is pretty much gospel, and it's Ashley's a good player herself, and I think it goes back to that. You got to get out there and practice it. You got to get out there and put yourself in those uncomfortable positions and fight through it and learn a system and build from it. And the big, I'm getting so many good nuggets from this conversation today, from books to just thoughts and like your question, Joel, like, or when I asked you, what do I need to improve, or what do I need to work on? It's like, man, just focus on what you do well. And if you think about that, that's where your confidence starts just growing. If you sit there and go, golly, I had 4 3 putts today, I'm missing short putts. Well, most likely you're not going to feel good about yourself, or when you have that 3 footer, you're going to be thinking, gosh, here's another opportunity to miss. Where if you tell yourself, man, I'm a great putter, think about all the putts that you made. It's gonna help your confidence. Your speed's going to be better, and your putting's going to be better. So, yeah, I think those were good comments from Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley, very much. What other thoughts or comments from anyone to Sam or myself? And again, like Sam and I said at the beginning here, we're glad that the rest of y'all wanted to ask us some questions and interject some of the great things y'all have done as well-respected PGA pros in your playing career and your teaching career and your career in the shop. So go right ahead. If there's anything else anybody wants to bring up, learn what you're doing right.
Hey Joel, it's Dan Antonucci.
Go
I
ahead,
had
Dan.
I had to step away for a minute or two, but what Sam was saying about um, thinking about your bad shots and all that. I always have members coming to the pro shop and or players I coach with, and they're always telling me about their bad shots. And I say, stop right there. I want to hear about your good shots. I want to hear about your good drives. I want to hear about your pars, your birdies. You get them more of a, positively thinking about the golf game because we all as golfers, whether professionals or not, we have a tendency to think about our bad shots. What
Yep.
could have been? Well, let's think about our good shots. So I think that's a neat thing to get your student or your members uh, thinking in the right direction. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, I love that, Dan. Absolutely. What I quite often write down for people is I say, look, you played 6 over par for, what does it say? You played 6 over par for 3 holes, and you played 3 over par for 6 holes to total out to 9 over par for 9 holes. And I haven't told you all this story yet, but it's a very important one, a crux of all my teaching. But that's the way everybody is. That we play 6 holes, and like you're saying, Dan, they walk away saying, I played bad, I shot 9 over. And I would point out the fact, this is not an emotional thing, it's a fact that you played 6 holes, 3 over par. You're not much worse than a tour player, man, for 6 holes. Let's learn what you're doing right on those good 6 holes. And obvious, because that's more prevalent. In fact, this person, 42 out of 46 of their shots were good enough to shoot 42. Their 4 bozo shots ran it up to 46. So I'd say 42 out of 46, man, that's 87%. That's 87% in school right there, 42 out of 46. So I give people school grades since so many of us can relate to that. So yeah, Dan, absolutely. I like saying that to people. It's a fact. It takes a lot of the emotion out of it. And then I got another type in here from someone called Zoom user. The pressure, so I'd love to hear from this person as well. The pressure in the live, feel free to speak up here, unmute your camera if you like Dan did and Pat Delaney did. Unmute your camera and unmute your audio. But this is a little bit more of a lengthy observation here. The pressure and or embarrassment at the local or club level is that you see these people on a regular daily basis. And right or wrong, there is a perceived idea that you are only as good as your last round. You see these people more than other pros and sometimes more than your own family. And you give their imagined perception way too much value. Maybe it's all in the brain. You believe you are better than you think. Question mark, question mark. Comments. So that's what that Zoom user wrote in. So again, I'd love for them if they want to tell us more about their thoughts there, because I'm sure a lot of us agree. So that is Zoom user. Is that attendee? We'd love to hear from you.
I think it's important to remember, not just in golf, but in life, that people are not thinking the things you think they're thinking. Right? Like, if I go, sorry, Jonesy, I'm going to throw you under the bus, but if Jonesy goes out there and shoots an 82, I don't care. I might look at it and be like, ugh, bad day. Like, so what? I'm not going to be like, oh, fucking Jonesy shot 82, man. Like, his game's in the shitter, he's done for. Nobody cares. They really don't. Um,
That hurts,
and I
Ashley.
think
That really hurts. Thanks.
that's just digging
So,
deep.
and
Hey, I said 82 and not 92. So
yeah, appreciate
get
that.
that going for you.
Ashley, like
No,
the
but
people
just,
that,
it's honestly like a constant reminder that people are not thinking the things you think they're thinking. Right.
you're telling me, Ashley, we can't mind read other people?
Well, you could try, but you're going to be very upset because the things that, we have envisioned that people are thinking about us are way worse than, what they're actually thinking. So,
Yep. We're with
um,
you, Ashley, for sure. Thank you for reminding us of that.
I would sure agree with that. I can't tell you how many times I played in tournaments when I did play in tournaments that I have to ask the person I was scoring for what they had on the hole because I was
yeah.
so focused on what I was doing and not what
Yep.
they were doing.
Yep.
I love it.
Another way to work around this too is, maybe if you go out and play with members or you're in a pro-am, something like that, and you're not playing so well, you build up their game and you pat them on the back when they hit that real nice shot onto the green, or you just tell them how much fun, I had playing with you today and I'll never forget this. So, and on the other hand, if you happen to play well that day and you shoot 2 under or something, they're always going to remember that. So it's not always us thinking about ourselves and our game. You got to relate to the people you're playing with and pat them on the back.
Yep.
Beautiful, Dan. Thank you. All right. I have something else typed in here. Many poor bozo shots are caused by internal distractions, not physical skill or technique. And again, the person who typed that in, feel free to speak up and tell us more about some details about your thought there for us. And Sam, if you'd like to speak back to that, I'd love to hear your reaction to that. Many poor bozo shots are caused by internal distractions, not physical skill or technique.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that comment of with Bob Sowards. I don't think he's on the 72nd hole thinking about his elbow flying here or there or working on a fundamental. He's just thinking about the opportunity of hitting the fairway and what he does really well.
And whoever typed that in, you can go ahead and speak up and tell us a little more of your thoughts here if you'd like.
Well, Dan's thought, we accentuate the negative instead of the positive. We should always talk about our good shots, not our bad shots. And it's what movie you play in your brain. A lot of times, we have so many distractions, so many thoughts, and if you can just quiet your brain, so you can play, you'll get a lot more out of it. But there's just so much outside distractions nowadays, especially with all the YouTube videos. And, take a lesson by watching a guy on YouTube, and then go to somebody else on YouTube. There's just so much confusion that it's hard sometimes to concentrate the 2 seconds it takes to hit.
Yep, absolutely.
Joel,
Thank
I
you,
remember,
Pat.
this is Brian Jones real quick.
Go ahead, Brian.
Again, I remember when I was young, coming up as playing when I worked under Bob Howard, and I got paired the first time with Bob Sowards. And he said, don't get taken in by his game. Just watch how he handles himself, whether he hits a good shot or a bad shot. So we're in the shop the next day and Bob pops in. He goes, so what'd you see? I said, you wouldn't know if he was shooting 90 or 60 throughout his game. And because, I was younger back then too, and I had a little piss and vinegar at times. And, obviously we all know, to a certain degree that can be good, but a certain degree it can also take us over and consume us and not let us play the way we know we can play. And then it was I fast forward many years, and it was me up at Longaberger. It was me and Bob and Tim Krappel, one of the last groups. Bob's playing pretty well. Gets up to I think it was the 15th, 16th hole, and he goes to hit a second shot, and he just dead heels one. I mean, just way offline, up in the hillside. And of course, I probably reacted more than Bob did. And I was like, holy crap, what the hell was that? Bob just kind of went on about, ended up making a bogey on that hole. And then next thing you know, he hits a driver and a 7-iron in the middle of par 5, makes eagle, and off he is. And I remember that comment Bob said. I said, wow. I mean, you talk about the high and low of that day, and it was just like you wouldn't know what score he was making.
Indeed.
And, again, to me, that goes back to he didn't care what I thought. He only cared about what he needed to do. And I think even as students and or our students and as instructors, right? I mean, I get it a lot, especially when I get beginning ladies. They're like, "Oh, I don't come out and hit balls. I'm worried about everybody standing there watching me." I'm like, everybody's more concerned about themselves than they are you. Don't, and then when they start to realize that, then they're more apt to come out and practice around, and so forth. And I think that just that mindset holds true to why some people don't play anymore. I mean, I know just personally, I was playing all the time, then I got busy with the PGA and doing different things, and I didn't have as much time. It was hard to get back into that because I also knew my game wasn't where it was, before I kind of started taking that time every hours of my time. And I really like the idea, and it's something I'm going to do for myself is, you know what, I want to work on improving me and trying to get back to where I was. And I know it can't happen overnight, and judge myself more on my improvement versus how I'm matching up to everybody else.
Yep. I love it. That's beautiful, Brian. I appreciate it very much. This is a great quote, and that golf should be renamed Mind and Putting. And if there are no other questions, I'll tell you, this may sum it up a little bit. Uh, One of the reasons I like this photo is the personal nature of our game. Steve and I and the rest of us got to talk a lot about on Monday about the personal nature of our game. And again, we're talking about being better players here today, yet people are constantly referring to things they're learning from other mentors, other better players that they've known and run into and gotten the opportunity to play with. And that's what I want to keep going for us, especially those of us who don't play in tournaments as much, who are just nervous playing with our students. We can overcome that, is what I hope the theme of this whole week is. Dan Antonucci, who's spoken a little bit here for us today, has mentioned that he's had a wonderful career, 35 years at a really nice club in the Buffalo area. He's going to help us with that on Friday, where he's still played once a week or so with his members. I think maybe even a little more, a little less at times, but he could still play a very respectable round of golf. And he did other more constructive things on Mondays rather than playing in the events. And so I'll tell you a little story about this photo. I like this because Taylor, our son, some of you know him. He's also now a PGA professional in the Southern Ohio area. I had him down and our daughter at the PGA show. Taylor was about 11, our daughter was about 9, and my wife Darlene was at home. And he got to visit, and he was just starting to caddy at Clovernook, or maybe the next year. And so he got to visit with Rabbit. And man, he referred back to that conversation for weeks and months. And he even put up a picture of Rabbit on his bedroom door because Rabbit was telling him some really important things about caddying. And as an 11 or 12-year-old young man, he understood the coolness of the moment, you know. And this goes back to Sam, like you're saying, we're all just normal people. And these people that we tend to put up on a pedestal, we think, oh, they never make mistakes. Brian, you're just telling us there about Bob hitting a snap fade there in the middle of an important, and critical part of the round. We're all just normal people. And I think one of the things I've never gotten that is interesting for me, I've never gotten an autograph in my life. And a few years ago, I was talking to someone else who had a famous relative in the entertainment world. And this guy seemed really down to earth. He and I have gotten to be friends the last few years. And I said, something I just realized recently, David, I've never gotten an autograph. And I wondered if he'd gotten autographs. He said, no. Now that I think about it, Joel, no, I've never gotten an autograph either. I said, I think that's because we have famous relatives. Because we have famous relatives, we know that they're normal people. And all our family problems they're having to deal with. They're part of our family. They're just normal people. And yeah, they may be famous in their realm and their industry, but they're just normal people. And so another story I'll tell you about Gary Player is kind of cool. We were at the Darlene and I and Taylor was about 1 year old. We were at the opening of the World Golf Hall of Fame down in St. Augustine. And you can imagine what this was like for any of us. And maybe some of y'all might have been there too. But so Aunt Sis had invited Darlene and me there, and Taylor was 1 year old. We have a cool picture of him getting his first ice cream from Aunt Sis there in her lap. But so all these Hall of Famers there for the thing. There's a dinner, kind of an informal dinner in this big typical convention room. And so, every table is, it's whatever, it's 60 or 80 of the Hall of Famers in the same room having dinner with each other and their guests, their spouse or their children, like me and Darlene. And so they say, folks, somebody says, we need to get up and have a picture of everybody. We have this place to stand over here. And so all these Hall of Famers get up, it's like fourth grade lunch class or something. All these Hall of Famers get up and they start to walk across this convention room, most of them walking pretty slowly. And Gary Player comes past us and he says, Louise, I must tell you, I'm so glad to see you here. But I forget Gary Player's wife, but her name, let's say, was Ann. He says, we were just going through the basement the other day and we found Ann's first golf clubs, Louise. They were Louise, Suggs, McGregor, Irons, and Woods, the most beautiful clubs I've ever seen, Louise. She has loved them more than any club she's ever gotten since. I just wanted to tell you that, Louise. And then he walks off. So he's excited about the clubs that he found in the basement of his wife. They're like 50 years old. So I hope this whole week has given you the appreciation for the personal nature of our game. And again, we can have our idols, like many of us idolize many of the people on the call here. But in addition to idolizing them and respecting them immensely, we also know that we're all just normal people at the same time, like Ashley's mentioning, and a couple other people have mentioned, and John has mentioned. So I'm very thankful to get y'all's input here today. Sam, and I see nothing else typed in. I'm glad y'all accepted my request to unmute yourselves on the video and on the audio. So you granted Sam's wish and my wish today, where we got to hear from y'all and really understand y'all all the better about this topic of playing better golf.
Well, Joel, I just want to thank you for inviting me to come and talk golf, and very honored to talk about playing, uh, the next level golf, tournament golf, and so forth. And I've got notes here, and I got a lot of nuggets out of today's conversation. And I'm actually I'm going to try my hardest to get on the podcast on Friday. I look forward to hearing what you and Dan are going to talk about. But unfortunately, I'm going to be on a plane. I'm going out to playing John Daly's Pro Am, and I'm going out to Palm Springs, California. And I've never been out there, so I'm excited to try all your new stuff. And I'm focusing on no bozo shots and my wedge game and speed on putting. So I'll give you an update on how that goes. So it's a two-day event, and just very excited to get out there and try this stuff. And hopefully I can save some strokes here and there. And I look forward to the Friday's podcast, and I appreciate everything you're doing for the game of golf, Joel, and keep it up. And you got a lot of nuggets that you can share. So thanks again for everything that you do.
We seem to have found someone in a back alley here. Sam, do you see this person in a back alley holding up a weapon? Oh, no, it's not a weapon. It's a golf club.
Yeah, the McGregor, that might be, is that a McGregor or
Probably is.
Louis Suggs? It's probably
Uh,
Louis Suggs special.
I get this all the time. Thank you, John. I found out, John and I spoke on the phone about an hour last week. I found out when I told him my dad started out as a grunt in 1948 on the factory floor about 15 minutes away from here down on Spring Grove Avenue at McGregor. John, what did you tell me, John? I told you that about my dad, John. What did you tell me about your dad?
Well, my dad worked at McGregor when it was in Dayton.
Yeah, there you go.
A lot of people don't know that McGregor had a 9-hole course that actually was bought by Dayton Power and Light. Now it's an industrial park called McGregor Center, or McGregor Park, I think it's called actually,
Okay.
and even made clubs for Ben Crosby. So
Thank you, John. So again, gentlemen, we can keep going here all day long, I'm sure, but we're going to need to stop and the ladies who have joined us as well. I'll give you a couple quick announcements. Remember, Friday is we're going to talk about fun golf with Dan Antonucci, which also it's not just about fun golf because obviously if you play more and better, hopefully that's not mutually exclusive from fun golf, you know. So it's all wrapped into the same. But I think Dan's looking forward to talking about what I've already mentioned about Dan's successful career there and how it can wrap into your business success too. So I'm really looking forward to Friday with Dan. Invite all your friends if you want to. You have the link. I don't mind if you share the link with them. Feel free to invite all your Rowdy PGA friends. Dr. Herdzen's office, for those of us in the Central Ohio area, Dr. Herdzen's office is Mikasa. I don't know that's Spanish, but there's some cool saying. He's told us that his house is our house. In addition to the Golf Heritage Society members who are invited to Dr. Herdzen's office, many of you have been there already, I know, but still, if you haven't, and if you've been there once, you need to go there 20 times to see it all anyway, is Thursday night. Look at the Golf Heritage Society website for the details, and that's the precursor to Friday and Saturday, the Golf Heritage Society Columbus Golf Show, where you can learn a lot about golf heritage and club collecting and all kinds of memorabilia collecting. Again, MSR points are available for this. So we're up to 2 hours, baby. So ching, 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 baby. The MSR cash register is ringing here. So we're up to 2 hours, we can say.
Put in for three, Joel. Put in for three.
Seriously. Okay. Whatever you tell me, man. You're the boss on that department, Dan. Thank you. And then your goodie bag, again, will be available for you. I should get it done sometime tonight. If not, it'll get ready for you tomorrow. Very interesting things there, I feel, about summing up our previous workshops and looking forward to our future workshops. And then again, in March, I have some of these on the books. I've already told you about a couple special guests, just like we've had this week. We also have Jerry Tucker and Kenny Knox already lined up for next month in March. So those are all the announcements that I can think of. And then hopefully you've read some of the free excerpts from my book also too, that I put into one of the emails in the last couple of weeks. So let me know about that if you have any questions about that. Sam, again, Sam and I know Sam and I appreciate this very much, that everyone spoke up. So it wasn't just Sam and I talking, because we want this to help you. We don't want to just be saying our minds. It's helping us. Sam, couple last words again.
I just want to thank everybody for attending. And again, Joel, I appreciate you showing your vertical leap there and dunking a ball, and maybe we'll get together and play a little basketball and golf. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing a golfer I know that can dunk, even if
yeah,
it was in earlier life. I love
yeah,
this, Sam. That's maybe the best thing today. We all learned it. If we didn't know it already, Sam Arnold has dunked, has known how to do it, and has done it. He's
yeah,
known and do it, baby. So
yeah,
Sam,
yeah.
absolutely an expert for us. All right, guys. Well, remember
Thanks.
the name professional golfer shall be a synonym and pledge of honor, service, and fair dealing. His or her, Ashley, professional integrity, loyalty to the game of golf, and great sense of responsibility to his employer, employees, vendors, clients, and fellow PGA professionals transcends thought of material gain in the motives of the true professional golfer. And so I'm honored to be in y'all's presence, as I'm sure Sam is too.
Thanks, Joel.
Thanks, y'all, so much. Have a good afternoon. Hope you get to play today.